County Conversation podcast is sponsored by Daffabet, the world's leading online betting site. To find out more, visit daffabet.com. It's the County Conversation, the show where we take the three most interesting stories from the last week of county cricket and give you the inside track to them here. I'm Cameron Ponsonby.
I'm Nick Friend.
Perfect. 4 out of 4. We've done it
4 out of
correctly
4.
3 weeks in a row, and that was our second attempt at it today because I made a mistake elsewhere and you'll never hear it. But our 3 topics this week. We're halfway through the county championship and it's been good. We've got a proper title race in Division 1. Division 2 is throwing up loads of surprises. We're going to do a quick review of who the players going under the radar are and kind of the wider storylines that have developed over the past couple of months. The Women's T20 County Cup has finished. We asked for it. Did we like it? And Middlesex County Cricket Club, the worst team in T20 history. To preview the start of the blast, Nick has done a deep dive on the boys who play at the home of cricket, but who are bad. Look at that. What about that?
Really chucked me in it there. Cheers.
That's the whole piece. That's literally it. You found that statistically they're the worst team ever. And it's really, this is my words, not yours. I think you play in the home of cricket and you lose all the time.
Well, we'll get to that. I think they're interlinked somewhere in there. But...
Oh, well, I can't wait. Don't skip ahead. Or you can. Do what you want. Right, to start with, Division 1. We've got an actual title race, Nick. So Notts are leading the pack on 115 points. Surrey are just behind on 105. The kind of prevailing sentiment going into this season that Surrey were the unstoppable train. No one's going to beat them. And to be fair, no one yet has. But Notts have been a bit of a surprise package. Talk me through it. Why has this been such a kind of heartwarming, is too strong a term, start to the season?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it heartwarming. I don't look
I.
at Notts as plucky underdogs, to be honest. I'm pleased Notts are going well because we've said on this pod before that, like, I always think you look down Notts' lineup and it's like a collection of guys we were told would be really good when they were 20, if you know what I mean. It's like, and it is nice to see it come together. And, individually, it's been nice to see, some of those guys going really well, whether it's Liam Patterson-White the last couple of weeks. He'd had a sort of a quiet year or so. Jack Gaines, who'd never scored 100 for Notts until a few weeks ago, and now he's gone really well. And Haseeb Hamid, obviously, I think is like the sort of like the centerpiece of that kind of theme. This kid that everyone wanted great things for and had a tough time and has been certainly the standout English batter in the country this summer. And obviously, you've got a teenage off spinner in there who's doing really well in Fard Ahmed. We had Peter Moores on at the start of the first episode we ever did of this, didn't we? And they were gearing up to, I believe, our colleague Nick Howson with Peter Moores on basically said, I fancy you lads to struggle this year. Yeah. And he wasn't wrong. And by the end of last season, there wasn't an enormous amount of goodwill, not internally, but among the Notts fan base necessarily towards, the team and the coaching staff. And they'd had a really poor year in the Blast as well, which historically was their baby. And it's been great. It's been nice to see it come together. Dylan Pennington, rough start to the season with injury stuff. Good to see him pick up a match-winning 5 for the game just gone against Yorkshire. And they're top because they've won. They're top for the right reason, which is they've won the most games, and that is what that is ultimately what you want from this competition, and particularly the way it's been the last few years, where draws have more so in Division 2 and Division 1 have been an enormous part of it. Surrey, who we're all told have started slowly and have struggled to win games, etc., etc. Look, they have. They've won 2 out of 7, but they are the only unbeaten team in Division 1, and they're nestled quite nicely, 10 points behind Notts. And if you were a betting man with the Blast coming around and Mitchell Santner arriving and 2 championship games to be played in late June with a Kookaburra ball, you wouldn't be at all surprised to see, Mitchell Santner playing in those championship games for Surrey potentially, and suddenly you go from saying, well, they don't have a spinner to actually having one of the wiliest finger spinners going round. And
I love watching him bowl.
He's lovely to watch bowl, and that has been, I think, fairly the criticism level or the observation level at Surrey this year, which is that they, as we've discussed in the pod the last few weeks, they've struggled to win games away from home, where the ball hasn't done much for the seamers and where a specialist spinner would be handy. And obviously, they've got the added sort of span of the works now of Dan Lawrence's injury. So the spinner they have been going to is injured. They played Essex just in this week on with six seamers, and that is,
I reckon
one way of doing it.
arguably too many. But it's fine. I want to move on from Surrey a little bit because, as you mentioned, Notts are top. They've won 4 of their 7. Surrey have won 2 of their 7. As a whole, it feels like the league, and we were
This is
discussing this
Division One
before we
we're
started.
talking about, yeah,
Both Division
or
1 and
both.
Division 2 here. You said something to me where you went, it feels like no one's been amazing. And I kind of
That
individually,
was, yeah.
yes. And because normally at this time of the season, there's some story about some lad who's taken 7,000 wickets and scored 8 million runs. And it's kind
Yeah.
of that's the prevailing storyline.
And of course,
But
Marcus Harris has done that, but he's not
yeah,
won a
but
game yet.
he's not won a game yet. The highest run scorer in the entire county championship plays for the 18th team out of 18, which is in itself worth remarking upon. But it feels like the reason why we're kind of not taken away with individual storylines this year is that the team storylines and the league storylines are that much stronger. Surrey aren't top of the table, as always. Leicestershire and Derbyshire aren't bottom of Division 2, kind of as always. There are surprise packages and there is interesting cricket being played. You come on this show every week and keep telling me that Gloucestershire are playing the best cricket in the country and they keep
They
losing.
declared 100 runs. They declared 100 runs behind on Sunday.
Yeah, and that was the first time they did something interesting because didn't they declare about 7 hours too late a few weeks ago?
That is what the most interesting team in the country are doing. They set themselves They gave themselves 350 to win, and they didn't quite do it. But no, you are right. Like I was at New Road on Sunday and to watch Warwickshire mainly actually because they were the 18th team. My pound shop 92 is complete. I've seen all 18 teams. I'm a budget Daniel Story,
and it only took you 7 weeks.
And I know, well, exactly, Daniel. I know you were slacking. It's my whole season, but no. I was there to watch Worcestershire play Warwickshire, and Warwickshire were touted to really struggle this season. I think they lost their head coach a month or so before the season. Tom Nathan broke his finger just before he was about to start. There were question marks over the runs over who would score their runs, and also question marks over how they take to win wickets because they played on a very flat edge master pitch, and a lot of their attack is quite samey pace wise. But they were done by the weather at New Road. Like they're one of the all-time draws for Worcester because an absolute, I want to call it a minefield because there are reasons there, around the flooding and stuff, but it was not a great pitch to bat on. And on Sunday, I counted 7 blokes get hit off a length on the hand, like properly
nice
wrapped, like Ed Barnard letting go of his bat. But it was even there. Actually, the odd interesting individual story there. Chris Rushworth was back for the first time. It felt like ages. No, played towards the end of last season, but their attack, and you'll hate this because I know you'll like this. But Warwick's attack was Wokes, Bamber, Rushworth, and Barnard. And I know you think that is like the Antichrist.
That is sexy.
The unholy trinity, the unholy quartet.
Quadrant, yeah.
But no, they were. They played. I thought they did a very good game and dropped some chance in the cordon. But equally, like Worcestershire are really interesting because they're bottom, but they're not as adrift as you think.
Hey! Let me tee it up, Nick. Let me tee it up.
I'm sorry, I didn't have that on your list.
I do. What do you mean I don't have it on the list? It's right there.
You do. It's there. It's there. Forgive me.
Okay, that's fine. The listeners forgive him. It's okay. Hey, Nick, funny you mentioned New Road because Worcestershire, while they're bottom, are actually quite interesting, aren't they? You might think they're stranded at the bottom, but they've got 3 seamers, Allison, Waite and Taylor, all with 20 wickets or more.
Which, when you watch them play at New Road, is hardly surprising. But
okay, but why is there hope for them? Even though
there's hope for them, I think, because of New Road. They've still got 4 home games to play, and for context, that game at New Road was a draw on Monday. It was a draw because of the weather on Monday. That was actually the first game at New Road this season to see day 4. One of them didn't see the 7th session of the match, so they will have they'll always have a puncher's chance because we say sorry have won 2 out of 7. Like Worcestershire will get results in the 4 games they have to play at New Road, and if you win those 4 games, that is a minimum of 19 times 4, which is, for the mathematicians,
19 times 4, 76.
76. And if you add 76, if they were to win their 4 games, and that's without getting a single batting point, that'd be. But if they were to win those 4 games at the minimum number of points, that would take them to 130 points. You'd do well to get relegated with that. Not saying that'll happen. They're also only 5 points adrift of Yorkshire, who We talk about Worcestershire being adrift. They've actually got an identical record in terms of wins, losses, draws. Obviously, slightly different the bonus points, but it's interesting league because the teams that have competed at the top in these years, the years gone by, Essex are third bottom, played really well at the Oval, got done a bit by the weather and on the last day. But it really, it's a pretty open tides race. It's a pretty open sort of, despite the fact that it looks like two sides are stranded. I think Yorkshire have played better than their results would suggest as well.
Well, I just want to pick you up on something you mentioned there about something that I feel like we haven't spoken about previously is like the expectation, or we're building in people like they'll win matches. That we need. I tell you what, my maths aren't good enough, but a task for next week, I'm going to do the numbers and work out if there've been more or fewer draws this year than in previous seasons, because it's felt that way. And winning matches has been the difference, whether it's at the top of the table in Division 1 with Notts, at the bottom of the table where you go, Worcestershire could string a few results together, or in Division 2.
Lovely segue.
Thank you
Where
so
Leicestershire...
much. Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. Where Leicestershire are top of Division 2 with 5 wins from 7 and 4 in a row. Now, we're going to
4 in a row, all inside 3 days.
They're good, man. Now, so
They're good.
we've done... No, before I do that, you wrote in your notes to me that they are basically up. Now, can you just explain that very quickly? So, Leicestershire on 139 points, Derbyshire is second on 108, Glamorgan third, 97, Gloucestershire fourth, 87. So they are 42 points clear of Glamorgan, of basically of the automatic promotion cut-off. Why does that mean at the halfway point they are as good as up?
Well, fundamentally, they could sit out the next 2 rounds and still be in the top 2. I'm not suggesting they should do that. It would be a bold strategy, Carden.
Yeah, exactly.
To quote the dude from Dodgeball. So I don't know why I did that. That was fine. It's staying in.
It's staying in. Yeah.
But they have won more games this season than they have won, and we've played 7 games than they've won in any season since, I think it's 2018. They won 5 games in Division 2 and finished. And look, in that year, in a 10-team Division 2, they finished 6th. So Foxes can still go desperately wrong. But,
there we go.
But a lot would have to go wrong now. Like the reality is they won 5 out of 7 and they're bringing in Shan Massoud for their 8th game. They're only getting stronger. The only, if you look at what could theoretically go wrong, what could change negatively for them, it's TBC slightly as to whether Ben Green comes back for those next rounds, because they're during the blast where he's quite a big player for Somerset, from whom he's currently on loan. But I was looking at this yesterday, actually, and trying to work out what their current position means. Now, their current points tally would not get them promoted in any year, but their points tally, if they were to win their 8th game and be 6 from 8, would, I think, if I remember correctly, would take them very close to, or if not past, very close to Worcestershire's. Worcestershire went up in 2023 with 160. So I can't do my maths. Worcestershire went up in 2023 with 167 points, with 5 wins, 3 losses, and 6 draws. Even a full bonus points win won't quite take Leicestershire to the 28 points that would require them to get to that tally. But if they were to win their next game, they would be within 3 or 4 points of the tally that took Worcestershire up through 14 games 2 seasons ago.
It's remarkable. Now, I was going to say, because I remember the stat that I think either you told me or Yaz Rana from the Wisdom Pod told me at the start of the season. Let's go for you. That going into this season, I think it was Derbyshire and Gloucestershire won something like 3 of their last 50 championship games combined. It's the year of the win. It's the year of the result.
It's crazy. And remember, we are a decade on since Leicester went 2 years without a win. Like, 5 out of 7 is mad.
So we've been giving Leicestershire a lot of love on this pod this year, and rightly so. We basically sent a message round the cricketers' stable of journalists to say who's been your player of the season. We were going to play these a little bit later, and we will hear from Mel Farrell in due course to ask for who they think has impressed them the most. And surprise, surprise, the cricketers David Sharman and Oscar Rest have both name-checked Leicestershire players, one of which I'm very pleased with, and you're going to hear why they are their players of the season so far now.
Leicestershire sold Buddinger's contribution so far have gone a little bit under the radar, I feel. He's really stepped up while Rishi Patel was injured, and he seems to improve year on year too at tempering the kind of impulses that often get him into trouble. It feels like the breaks come at a good time for him as his form's dipped slightly, but you just feel if he gets that elusive maiden first-class century, then he'll really kick on and be a key player in their promotion push during the second half of the season.
I've been most impressed with Leicestershire's Ben Green so far this county championship season. I felt like for this I really had to go to Leicestershire, top of Division 2 and flying high. And also he's sort of outperformed what we know of him as a Red Bull player in the past. He's taken 22 wickets so far this season, which is over half his career first-class wickets. That included a maiden first-class 5-wicket haul against Gloucestershire in a match where he also hit the winning runs, and he's been very useful with the bat as well. He's got this unique existence where he plays all his white ball cricket at Somerset and all his red ball cricket at Leicestershire, so don't be surprised if the loan that he's on at the moment gets extended later into the season when the county championship returns.
Hey, David Sharman knows what's up. Sol Budinger, the funnest cricketer, opening batter in the country, bar none. His takedown of Dane Patterson in their small run chase, so exciting, so fun. Let's also give Derbyshire some love. Just like Leicestershire, they were previously the kind
There you
of...
go. You've had it.
That's pretty much what we're going to do. They were previously kind of the basement boys going nowhere, but Mickey Arthur seems to be having his time. We always say we're going to give them their proper credit, and then we never do, and it's going to be the same this week, so we're not really going to focus on them.
No, but I am going to give you a lovely, quick Derbyshire anecdote, very quick one, and you'll enjoy this
Perfect.
because it's
Yes,
the kind of
please do.
crossover that we both enjoy. Now, Sunderland went up on Saturday, as you'll be
Yep.
aware,
Yep.
to the Premier League,
Yep.
and Pat Brown of Derbyshire is a big old Sunderland fan. And in years to come, when people say, where were you when Sunderland were promoted? Pat Brown will say, I was at fine leg at Derby while Kent batted on a flat one, talking to the members behind me, keeping me updated on Tom Watson's 97th minute winner.
Oh,
And I love that story because we had the equivalent story on here last year, if you remember,
Yeah.
with Callum Parkinson,
I do.
telling us how Callum Parkinson was on doing the same thing. He was on the boundary rope at Blackpool, I believe, where Lancashire were playing Durham or were Lancashire playing Leicester? Well, I can't remember. Either or.
Doesn't
He was
matter.
on the boundary and outground playing a championship game with the home fans lying to him, or not either lying to him or telling him correctly that Bolton had lost their playoff final. And we're both QPR fans. We've both seen a playoff win, and it's a bloody great way to win. And do you know what? Even if I was on the field, even if I was feeling at fire leg on a flat one, I'd probably love that moment. It would give me a second wind. But can you imagine anything worse than doing a day in the dirt and being told while standing in the cold at fire leg that your team had lost the playoff final in the last minute? You know, I think you'd walk off. You'd wave the 12th man on.
Of course, it happened to Joe Root because he's a Sheffield United fan. They obviously, lost to Sunderland. And you think he was playing against Zimbabwe, and it's like my mate Joe's played a lot of cricket. At that point, if they're just fielding, just let him go. Like, mate, just be like, you don't need to be here. Someone else will field.
There's a lovely video that Derbyshire stuck on social media of them. They walked over to Pat Brown at fine leg and started videoing him. And Pat brilliantly just he looks at the camera and shakes his head and goes, don't do this to me.
Yeah. Anyway, right, we're going to move on from the kind of teams, the storylines of the teams this year, to the individuals, and to kind of mention who's going under the radar. And the first name we've got on our list is George Hill, who is the leading wicket taker in Division 1. He's got 32 wickets at an average of 14.7, strike rate of 35, which is just remarkable. Kind of one every 6 overs, 3 5-wicket hauls that came in consecutive games. And he's probably the main domestic winner, along with Tom Haynes at Sussex, in the latest England Lions squad that's going to take on India as warm-ups for... Well, it's not even warm-ups for the Test series, is it? Because they're playing their own thing. But George Hill, I don't know much about George Hill. Do you? What do we want to talk about with George or the England Lions?
Well, George Hill, for a start, he's an all-rounder who bats as well. He's got 4 first-class hundreds.
Yeah.
He's been, I suppose, in a way, it reminds me a bit of, in a way, of the Pennington rise, and that people say, "Oh, where's this guy come from, mate?" It's like, well, actually, like, he played for England under 19s, so he kind of has been on the radar for quite a long time.
Over
Whether
50 first class appearances.
yeah, and like whether you fall off that radar, I think one of the things that this will sound lazy, it's not meant to, but like um, Yorkshire have a few sort of like have had a few similar sort of standing of cricketer in your, I suppose in seam bowling around us the last few years. George Hill, Matt Revis, Matthew Waite went on to Worcestershire. Like George, I don't know him personally, but I just don't know what you did.
Exactly.
George and Joe, the Yorkshiremen. No, like, and I think it's easy at times to, particularly as well, like in that star-studded middle order that they can have and have had at times. You can almost like get lost in some of these youngsters. And we've talked a bit about James Wharton on this pod before, and I think he's similar. I think Will Luxton, you can get a lot of these guys are very talented coming through the Yorkshire system. You can almost get lost in the bigger names at the county. But I think, yeah, like the most interesting thing about him is that you ask other guys on the circuit, as I did after the Lions score came up, and everyone says the same thing, which that they're really pleased when he bloody deserves it. And I think at this time in English cricket, it's a really interesting, like, I like hearing that, because you read a lot about selections now with the full side or the line side. There's a lot of, I can see why they've done it. We know that Eddie Jack, for example, is in this line squad as well. We know he's quick, but a lot of guys say we're not seeing very much from him. He's hardly played for Hampshire. He played against the Zimbabwe team in that select 11 game. But you get a lot of guys. A lot of the sections now are done on feel, aren't they? And it is George Hill's not rapid, by any stretch, but he is. It's nice to see a 24-year-old turn up in Division One, having been in. He's played most of his career in Div 2, and go as well as he has done for the last few weeks, and properly like earn that go in a way
you're
that.
right.
And that's the, I suppose, like that's the. And if you look at his, he's taken 5 the last few weeks against Notts, who are top, Surrey, who had second, Essex. He took 9 for against Essex, have been the perennial challengers for the last 4 or 5 years. Before which time they were winning it. So you can't argue with it, and that is, with where the game is now, a really good spot. And I think Tom Haynes is similar. Haynes scored millions of runs for Sussex as like the designated adult, even as a youngster himself in that Div 2 like kids team. And this is the first year he's played in Div 1 at all. So to see him come up and score the runs he scored in Division 1, when once again there'll always be that like inherent, can he do it in Division 1? Is there a difference in Division 1? What does that look like for an opening batter? Like, once again, he's gone away and earned it. And I think Haynes will be less surprised to people, because a lot of people will probably assume he's played more Lions than he has done over the years. So, so I think you're right. They're the two main beneficiaries. But equally, I think Farhan, you'd say, is, he's obviously very exciting anyway. But what he's done as a 17-year-old Osprey in Division 1 is amazing.
It's another step in the direction of the potential meteoric rise of Farhan Ahmed, basically.
Yeah, and Jackson Dale is the other one, I think, who's worth a shout. Like, he's been with the Lions before. Everyone knows he's quick, but he has added, how Sue would say, he's added wickets. But he's bowled some really consequential spells in the last few weeks.
I think that's the point. I think there's probably a nod across England's selection at the moment to where it used to be just the kind of potential picks and the high ceiling picks, to now kind of combining either end of the scale, where you've got the potential picks in Eddie Jack, but you also have the meritocracy picks. And the meritocracy picks are so important, mainly on the basis of keeping people sane. You've got to reward people if they do well, and that does feel like that's happening a little bit more.
I do also think England are, Ben Stokes' quotes last week around his own sort of mortality as a cricketer. Like, England would be very silly if they weren't taking a look at the seam bowling all-rounders out there, because as England have always known through Flintoff and Stokes and everyone in between, when they've not been around, English cricket relies on someone who can bat at 6 or 7 and bowl seam. So working out who that next guy is, well, not saying it's going to be George Hill necessarily, but he is out there doing a job really well, so he deserves that chance.
Well, there we have it. George Hill is the new Ben Stokes. Congratulations to George. A special mention, or a quick mention, to Safe as well, as someone who's potentially gone under the radar a bit in his career. He's got 3 centuries this season, averaging
very
50.
fun cricketer. Very fun cricketer.
I would say very aesthetic cricketer.
Does all the things in a really fun way.
He looks good. And in terms of players that historically may not have kind of performed to the level maybe people thought they could, or performed to the level they thought they might. He seems to be kind of realizing his potential. I hope that didn't sound patronising. It's all love, Safe. It's all love. Joe, George, and Safe. You're all welcome here. Right, those of you watching on YouTube may have noticed that I'm in a very bizarre room, and the fact of that matter is because I'm out in Rome currently, commentating on the ICC Women's T20 World Cup Europe Division 2 qualifier. There we go. I've got to get that right for broadcast. And I'm out here as well with the cricketers Mel Farrell. So we thought it'd be stupid not to make the most of that opportunity and get Mel on for 3 minutes and ask her about her player of the season. Well, as mentioned, I am out here in Rome commentating with the cricketers Mel Farrell on some World Cup qualifiers. And we thought, since we're staying in this, I'm going to be honest, it's a weird water tower.
It's a 19th century water tower that's basically in the middle of the road, and it's 60 steps from top to bottom, or bottom to top. That's the hardest bit. But it's covered in ivy. It's kind of romantic. I kind of wish I was here with someone else. No, I'm kidding.
I'm fine. That's fine. That's okay. That's okay. All right, I'm just going to have to regather my senses at the moment. Right, I'll tell you what we could do. We could try and do something clever and send the photo of it to Owen, and he can lay it over so people can know what we're talking about. But when we're not commentating on World Cup qualifiers, we're obviously covering the county championship. And since we are both out here together, it felt amiss. It felt stupid to not ask you who your player of the season has been. We've had Dave Sharman say Sol Budinger, a choice I agreed with massively. We've had Oscar Ress say Ben Green. So a bit of a Leicestershire love-in. Do you have another Leicestershire player, or are you going off-piste?
I'm definitely going off-piste. But because I haven't watched Leicestershire this year, I've watched a lot of teams. I haven't done any Division 2 stuff yet. So I am going with the player that I have actually watched early on this year when he was playing at Edgbaston, and that's John Simpson. I mean, 3 centuries so far, averaging just a tick under 85. I know there are a couple of players who have scored more runs, but the fact he has led Sussex up into this division and the way he's played, the amount of really important innings he's played so far, he just did it again in the last round against Hampshire. I just think it feels like he and Farby are on a mission, but he's leading the way. And to come up into the first division, it's a serious jump, and to be where they are on the table at this stage of the season, a long way to go. I just think he's magnificent. When I watched him bat, it feels like there's something otherworldly propelling him. I mean, he's lovely to watch, but there's a determination. The fact he's been not out on so many occasions as well, I think is a real testament to him. And I spoke to him at Edgbaston as well. And just at the age of 36, to have this opportunity, obviously not having played very much for England, only having played for England when everyone had COVID in that COVID series, is someone at another time maybe might have played for England more. So I just loved seeing what he's done this season. I think it's been brilliant, leading from the front.
It seems like a really nice cherry on top of the renaissance of his career. The move to Sussex has gone so well, and the only kind of question mark left next to his name was kind of the age-old, can he do it in Division 1? Can he do it in Division 1? And he absolutely has been doing it and can do it. Mel, it's a short but sweet cameo for you on this week's County Conversation podcast.
This is our only opportunity to get into it, Rome. So I say, allora.
Prego. Right. The County Championship is now done for a little bit. It's going to be back kind of end of June. We've had 7 rounds. The next 7 rounds will take place over the next 4 months. And I tell you what, Mel, we're now going to go to an ad break. So people listening will have just heard your voice now, and they're about to hear your voice now.
Allora. The Cricketers' award-winning team brings our subscribers news, features and insight on county and international cricket every single day. You can try us now by signing up for £1. Yes, you heard that correctly, just £1 at thecricketer.com/digital.
Mel Farrell there. Twice, if you're listening on Spotify, because you'll have heard her voice, then you'll have heard her voice again for the ad break. Anyway, the Women's T20 County Cup, the first ever edition of it, has come to an end. Lancashire have beaten Surrey in the final. Did it work, Nick? In effect, this was a competition that people clamoured for. The FA Cup of cricket. Bring it back. It's what the fans want. It's what the people want. Well, it's over. Did we like it?
I think you could only, yes, it worked because we all, it would be very English cricket to clamour for something for ages, then actually get it and go, nah. So, no, look, it worked because I suppose it was proof of concept. I thought Nick Howson, my boss, I was going to say colleague, my boss, wrote a very good piece in Taunton yesterday after Lancashire won it, essentially saying, as far as soft launches go, pretty good soft launch. Now, what can we do to improve it? And I think that's the reality of it. It was asked for 20 odd years, essentially since the CNG Trophy ceased to be, or ceased to be knockouts at least. And yeah, that's the first go we've had since, and it works because it works. I think everyone got what they, it was an opportunity for teams in tiers 2 and through tier 3. It didn't have quite the impact. I suppose we judge things. I judge the FA Cup every year, not on whether Man City win it, not even really on whether Crystal Palace win it, but on whether
there are upsets.
The Met Police reached the 6th round.
Sure.
Did that happen? No.
Okay. On that note, I think.
It kind of did. But, sorry.
A reason I think it worked, and there were some quotes from kind of our finals day where basically the players bought into it. So I thought, as you said, there was no real upsets this year. Yorkshire beat Essex as a tier 2 side versus a tier 1 side. But
a couple of teams got far because of the draw. Meant that they were playing.
Sure.
Two teams played tier 2 teams and stuff.
But what I was surprised about is I kind of thought you can't have tier 1 versus tier 3. Like that, just the gap feels too big. And then you actually hear from the players, and you've got Kirsty Gordon, who captains the Blaze, saying we played Oxfordshire tier 3 side, and I was really impressed with them actually. I'd like it to be a totally random draw, like out of a hat, like it is for the actual FA Cup. Kind of Bryony Smith and Surrey came in round 3, as all the tier 1 sides did, and they played Hampshire, then Durham in the quarterfinal, then straight to finals day. And she says it'd be nice to play some of the tier 2 teams, just see what we're up against. So the players, you've got to understand, this is the first generation of fully professional women's players. They've been there, they've done it, they've been a part of this growth of the game, and they are more than aware that, okay, if it means we go and potentially kind of batter someone by 150 runs, but that's kind of expanding it, fine. There seems to be genuine buy-in from the players who are invested in this competition.
But they're also invested more widely in the tiered system, and the biggest risk of the tiered system was always and will continue to be the potential to forget that it's a tiered system, that you have your top 8 and everything else beneath that is currently semi-pro, amateur, who cares, that kind of thing. Particularly when England play, you've got another, I suppose tier of interest on top. So you do risk, and that's the risk is you call it a tiered system, but in reality, all the attention focuses on the top tier. Whatever goes on underneath goes on underneath. Yeah. Actually, having a competition like this, and so it's not just it's not just players investing in, but it's everyone being able to go, oh look, this is here, and as Kirsty Gordon said in those quotes, the Blaze played a tier 3 team. I can't remember which one it was. Oxfordshire.
Yeah.
And she said, look, didn't know what to expect, but I was really impressed by them, and that is valuable because it interconnects them, and it might just mean that a young player in the Oxfordshire side who really impressed, against the Blaze, might now find her on a radar, being looked at by scouts who wouldn't have been looked at before, and that is the role of those lower tiers to produce for the depth and the strength of the game.
Right. Quick fire quiz. How are we going to improve it? If this is the kind of what's the word? Soft launch of the competition. How are we making it better? I'm going to go first. Right. I'm going to listen to the players. I'm going to make the tier 1 sides enter the competition earlier, maybe a round earlier, and have more of a mix in so everyone plays everyone. And my own personal opinion, I don't know if this is logistically possible, but I wouldn't do finals day. I'd probably have semi-final, final, just because I feel like you need to I think you need to artificially make it longer. I commentated for Surrey on their quarter final, and you get there and you go, this is their second game in the competition. It's a quarter final.
No, but this is no,
What?
but you've answered your own question in the first part of that. If the tier one teams, so you've got 37 counties, right, between national counties
Yeah,
and
I
first
guess
class
if you
teams. So
if
what you do is that the winner, so Lancashire have a bye because they won it, and then the other
nice, here
36
we go.
teams, the other 36 teams enter in the. Is that right? Or
No, that doesn't go
that
down
doesn't
to the
work either.
bracket. Yeah.
But point being, everyone enters in the first round. There are a couple of buys going around, fine. Or, but if everyone enters in the first round, then you have 16, 17, 18 first round ties. So that is how you make it longer. You don't.
Yeah.
I think having a one-off T20 for a final, and I suspect this is why they've done the same with the 100 and the Blast, is that it feels like too short a day.
Yeah, I mean, it only happens everywhere else in the world.
Yeah,
that's fine.
as I said that, IPL games, man, I was like,
that
yeah, World Cup
that pesky
final,
World Cup
IPL.
finals there. Yeah.
I've just
Okay.
been doing, when you've done
Anyway,
championship
and
for 2 months, you're used to sat in the ground for 9 hours.
I'm going to tee you up. Overseas players weren't allowed to play in this edition. Would you stick or twist on that rule?
I think I'd twist because I think the one thing that maybe the competition this year lacked is at times being made to feel like a development competition. And I don't think it, if it is your blue ribbon comp and if it is the FA Cup, you don't ban. Look, Premier League teams might choose to rest all their players, but you don't ban them from playing.
Yeah.
And let's be realistic here. For the moment, it's unlikely that a tier 3 team is going to go and win it. But if they're going to go and win it, wouldn't it be great if they beat Grace Harris in the final or Alana King in the final?
Yeah.
And if they're not going to beat them, wouldn't it be great?
Caveat-free miracle.
But also wouldn't it be great for like an 18-year-old playing in tier 2 to come up against Alana King and see how she fares against someone who she probably watched over the winter, rolling England. So, do you know what I mean? I think it's an objectively. I don't see it as, and I think it was done for balance and for fairness and stuff. But I don't think it's necessary. And of course, the other way it can be improved, and this is patently obvious and shouldn't happen again. Don't play the final or finals day on the same day that England women are playing. That should not need a. That is 1 minute in a meeting room. We don't do that. It's just dumb, isn't it? You're trying to get people to buy into it, right?
Do we want to try and we wrote down here, could it work in the men's game? I think my answer is where's the space, but yes. It could in theory, but how do you know what the men's game needs? Another competition.
It does need
more cricket.
Yeah.
So you know what? Let's just kick that can down the road. I can't be bothered to. That's just a schedule chat. It's boring. Can't be bothered. Right. To finish off this episode, God, serious camera. I tell you what, this is something about me being in Italy. We've been a bit haphazard this week, but it's fine. To finish off this
that's
episode,
why.
Yeah. Okay. Right. The Blast is starting this week. All that county cricket you got, all that Red Bull stuff. Well, it's over. It's so weird, mate. I've got the schedule in my head. We've played half the county season, and it's the 27th of May. And then over the next 4 months, the same amount of matches that were happened in the last 7 weeks are going to... Okay, fine. But with the Blast, rather than trying to digest 18 teams for you guys, we've picked out one story that Nick has been doing a deep dive on. Basically, Middlesex. They are statistically the worst T20 team of all time. Please tell me how...
You'll never see that.
Please tell me how this kind of came across your radar, how this started, and some of the reasons why this might be the case. And are they going to get better?
Yeah, no. Let's try. I'll try and answer one at a time, and you can come back in and break these up. Radar. It's always been on my radar because I live 10 minutes down the road from Lords. I watch a lot of Middlesex and the Blast, and you know what? I never see them win. So, in fact, I'll start with a stat because you can read this piece on thecricket.com coming out on Wednesday morning, which is when this comes out as well. So they'll align nicely. Middlesex last won at Lords in the T20 Blast on June 19th, 2022.
What?
Yeah. So you say has this been on your radar? I've known.
They must have won
home.
Have they won at Merchant Taylor's school or something?
No, they've won at Radlett. They've never won a T20 Blast game at Merchant Taylor's, where they're playing all 3 outground games this year. And they lost and they lost both of their home games at Chelmsford last year, which, by the way, other than the Oval, is the ground where they lose most in the South Group anyway. So why not choose a bogey ground to play your home games? They've got a very good record at Southgate, where they don't play cricket anymore, where Middlesex don't play cricket anymore. So no, it's a. I think the piece is really fascinating because it's not designed. It's not designed to be a takedown. It is just, here are the stats. Why is this the case? The stats. So Middlesex have lost 158 T20 matches, in which, and bear in mind, part of the tiny caveat. They started playing T20 cricket here earlier than other places, professionally, and had a competition going first, as we all know, and so they have played more, I suppose, but they have also lost more games than anyone else in the world. There are 6 teams in the world with a worse win percentage. 2 of those don't exist anymore, and the other 4 have only played 4 seasons. So it's, but like there's, it's. There are so many stats I could throw at you just on this radar bit, but we'll get to them. Like,
okay, so how about we do this? Like, what are some of the key reasons why you mentioned earlier Lords? Like,
Lords is fascinating.
How does Lords play a role in this?
I'm going to say some things that are going to sound really obvious, and you're going to go, "Oh yeah, that does make sense." We spend the whole time in T20 cricket talking about the importance of matchups and and conditions, and how we're going to play to that boundary and that boundary, and what does that surface tend to do? Short answer is, Middlesex play 4 of 7 home games at Lords. They've never rain shit on the ground. They've never dragged a cage onto the ground. They play on different sides of the square every time they play there. They have very little. They don't really have more home advantage than the team they're playing against.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So for context, Michael Pepper of Essex and London Spirit played more games at Lords, played more T20s at Lords last year than any Middlesex player. Because he played 1 for Essex as an away player and 4 for Spirit as a home player. And that is wild, right? So it's not a home ground. It is where they play their home games, but it has none of the characteristics that you expect of a home ground. So Lancashire, for example, have lost 30 games ever at Old Trafford or at home in the Blast over 22, 23-year period. Gloucestershire don't have quite the same record as Lancs, but you know what you're getting when you go to Bristol. You are going to play on something slow, low, and turgid, and they're going to bowl 8 overs of, in their heyday, of Benny Howell and David Payne at you, and you are going to have to find a way. And Tom Smith, and the challenge that's coming to hit you. Whereas at Middlesex, you really don't. Like, for one example, last year Middlesex turned up live on Sky and got rolled for 78 by Somerset on a used hybrid, and which took aback the home team as much as it did the away team. And I should say, this is no one's fault. Lords. Bear in mind when the Blast is played as well. There's always a test being played around the same time, so which is generally why Middlesex have to disappear for a couple of games elsewhere. And Lords, as well as England games, have a million other games being played during the week. They've got their square is their
Can
square.
you explain, when you say they've never trained on the ground like other teams do? Why? Why is that?
For that reason, for a start, it's not Middlesex's to. Middlesex don't own it, but also there's always cricket being played there. There's always cricket being played there, or pitches being prepared there. So they turn up with no better, I suppose, understanding of the dimensions on any given day than their opposition. Obviously, they've played them more recently and all that, but they don't have. This is one aspect of it. Lords is, and the reason you can be so sure of this is that Lords has the worst home team win percentage in T20 cricket of any ground in England. And that's not just Middlesex, that's London Spirit men, and that's England men as well. So which is a really interesting stat, I think. The only 2 teams with a worse home T20 win percentage than Middlesex are Welsh Fire, which has not been very good, but also have a similarly quirky ground at Cardiff, and London Spirit. So 2 of the 3 teams with the worst win percentages are Lords-based teams. And look, there is... another part of the Lords bit, I suppose, is that teams turn up at the home of cricket and it's their big game as well. Certainly in years gone by when it was 25,000, 28,000 sellouts at Lords for the Blast, a few years ago now, it was a great occasion for both teams. And, it was the big game of the calendar kind of thing. So I suppose they've had that to contend with as well. The other, but there is a follow-up question to that, which I'm sure, you know, MCC staff listen to this would go, well, is Lords a Middlesex's problem, or a Middlesex Lords' problem? And the fact is, Middlesex have not been good. You know, it's not like they've gone away from home and won every game, because they really haven't.
That's
They've been out.
interesting. Do you know if they have a better or worse win percentage at home or away?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but
Damn.
given that, but put it this way, Middlesex have been out of the group stage twice since they won the Blast in 2008.
That's so bad.
And the second of those in 2019, their top six was Sterling, Eskenazi, Milan, Morgan, De Villiers, Hafiz, and they qualified on the last day of the group stage and finished fourth by chasing 230. So they've always struggled. And, the other reasons, I think there are things around Middlesex, the county. I think Middlesex, I don't know if maybe this is just because I've looked into Middlesex, and it might be the same at other counties, but I think Middlesex are inherently a Red Bull focused county, if that makes sense. Like, if you think of their senior players, their senior core of players in the last few years, Roland Jones, Robson, Murta, I'm missing a couple of obvious ones here. Mark Stoneman, who obviously left at the end of last season. They're primarily Red Bull players, right? There's not a single Middlesex player on there. There's not a single player on the Middlesex staff who is a white ball contracted cricketer. They released Nathan Souter, who went to Durham to be one of the best white ball bowlers in the country.
You are telling me this, and they are sixth in Division 2, so that's not going very well for them either.
No, but I think traditionally, and maybe that's partly because of the Lords thing and the members and what is expected of them, and but equally, like there are some really weird bits of this. They were the county that appointed Daniel Vittori as a specialist T20 coach back in 2017 when that really wasn't the done thing, and he did 2 years. He won 7 games in 2 years, and yet if you ask the players who were around for that period, a lot of them speak really positively of him, but also of what they were trying to do. And he left at the end of 2018. Stuart Law came in as head coach, took over across all formats. They reached the quarterfinals in 2019 in that De Villiers year. The players would say, among their current squad, the guys who played their formative T20 cricket under Vittori were Max Holden, Tom Helm, Steve Eskenazi. You'd say that all three are among the better T20 players in the country. And there was some reason to what they were doing. I think what maybe held them back with Vittori was that actually and a few guys have said to me that what they did under him was almost ahead of his time, and that he came in, for example, a week before the comp started, straight from the IPL. Back then, people would call that half-baked, lazy, you're not giving it a proper go. Now we just say a whole week. That's the nature of the carousel, isn't it? You don't get that time. They did think, Dimitri Mascarenhas came in as a specialist bowling coach for the Blast in 2019 at a week's notice. Same kind of thing. Like, back then, you'd be like, why are we flipping to new ideas now before this starts? Whereas now you go, specialist T20 coach for the whole comp, coming in a week before, sounds good, like fresh ideas. So they've I think why I found it so interesting to read up on really is that they've tried everything. It's not just De Villiers, it's McCullum, Warner, Gilchrist, Bravo, like slightly more niche, but also like well-renowned T20 players, Chris Green, Jason Berendorf, like Majib. They've done all the things. They've had this specialist T20 coach. They've gone down the data route the last couple of years and picked like a younger, very homegrown side. They've gone without an overseas player for a year last year, and they have given everything a go, and they won it. They won it in the year of the Stanford series, and they played the Champions League, and it is so. They played England. In the Stanford Super Series.
I do remember that was a remarkable fever dream of a week. I remember I went to a friend's house. We gathered round to watch the Stanford Super Series to see, which is remarkable thinking about back to it. In 1 minute, summarise. Well, we obviously kind of know they've been bad. Is there reason for hope this year?
Yeah, I think there is. Because I think the first time in quite a while they've got a pretty experienced group for a start, but they've also signed Kane Williamson. They signed Kane Williamson, they signed Josh Little. They've got Zafar Goa as an all-format signing, but I think a very valuable white ball signing because he bowls sort of like low arm, skiddy left arm spin. Williamson their top six is going to look something like Eskenazi, Williamson, Holden, Duploy, Higgins as a top five, and that is a pretty good top five, right?
Yeah.
And their bowling attack is going to have Josh Little, who bowls high 80s, left arm swing. Zafar Goa, who's played an ODI for Pakistan and is a very good spinner. Luke Coleman, who took 23 wickets in last year's Blast, a strike rate of 9. Tom Helm, who's played in the 100, been around England squads. You look at that and go, there's got to be more that's going to go right than go wrong. So, yeah, you'd think so. If that doesn't go right, you do wonder if they should enter next year. No, because you'd go
Just write them off. They're
You've
done.
tried everything. You've tried everything, haven't you? So yeah, that would be short answer, I reckon.
Well, if you are going to be getting a cricket draft team together for this year's T20 Blast, some names to look out for. Obviously, Kane Williamson, but other overseas players. I'm going to slightly, for a moment, take the focus away from Middlesex. Luandre Pretorius and Devil Brevis at Hampshire.
Pretorius arriving slightly late.
I don't care.
And I
Get
think
him
one
in.
of your boys, a Surrey Championship boy, Bjorn Fortune?
Oh, Clyde.
No, sorry, not Clyde. No, okay, not okay, got the wrong one.
Okay, I was going to say, I was like, whoa, that's amazing.
Sorry, wrong guy. We can keep that in.
Okay, perfect. Look, hey, I hope the listeners and the viewers have enjoyed this week. I've enjoyed this week. It's been from a recording from a remarkable Airbnb room in Rome. Nick, you've been at home. We'll be reunited properly again next week. We'll be able to reach out across the table.
We're going Rome.
I know. But anyway, that's everything for this week. The County Conversation podcast is sponsored by Daffabet, the world's leading online betting site. To find out more, visit daffabet.com. I've been Cameron Ponsonby. Thanks very much to Nick Friend and Mel Farrell for joining us. And we'll see you and speak to you again next week.